Now that we already have a way to remove activities, it's time to start working on functionality to add activities. So in this lesson, we're going to work on activity creation form. We'll start from the activities component. This is the component where we will add markup for activities form. So let's go to the activities component, and right after list, let's add form element with one input field. And right after this input field, we're also going to add button to send this form. We will use base button component, and as a default slot, we'll pass icon component with name plus icon. This icon corresponds to plus sign. And at the same time, let's also specify height for this icon, 8 units. And then at the top, let's go and import those components. First of all, we're gonna import base component for button from components folder. And also let's add an import for plus icon component. We can copy the path for this import from another file, constants.js. Let's copy this path and paste into this import. And now on the page, at the very bottom, we're supposed to see one input field with plus button. And that is exactly what we're seeing right here. And now let's start applying CSS classes to make this form be fixed at the bottom. So when we will scroll this page, the form will always be visible in a viewport. And for that, let's add class sticky, which is going to set CSS property position with value as sticky. We will position this form at the very bottom of this page by using class bottom0. We'll also make this form flexible container, and the distance between child elements will be 2 units. Let's add top border and make background color white. And paddings from all sides will be 4 units. But at the moment, if we take a look on the page, we will see that sometimes this form gets hidden behind navigation. So we will move this form a little bit up by using absolute value, for example, 57 pixels. And now as we can see, whenever we scroll the page, this form always stays visible. Let's go ahead and stretch input field so it covers all available space by using class W full. We're also going to round corners, add border from all sides, horizontal paddings will be 4 units, and let's increase font size. And this form looks much better right now. Let's go back to the editor and add placeholder attribute with some text. For example, activity name. After all that, we're going to introduce another button type in our project, which will be primary type. And we're gonna make this button which submits this form primary button. So let's go to constants.js, where we have all constants that represent different types. And here let's declare new constant for primary type. We're gonna follow our conventions and call this constant button type primary. And also, since we store all button types in one array called button types, let's add one more entry, which is this constant button type primary. But this is not all. We also have to specify CSS classes that should be applied to all buttons with primary type. And for that, let's go to base button component. First of all, we're gonna import our new constant, button type primary. And then down here, in this type classes object, let's add another key and specify which CSS classes should be applied to all primary buttons. For example, let's make all primary buttons purple. For that, we're gonna rename a couple of classes in here and use purple color. And then we'll make it so all buttons, whenever we don't specify type explicitly, will be primary buttons. So as a default value for type prop, we're gonna use this button type primary constant. And currently on the page, all buttons that were previously neutral buttons have received purple color. But this is definitely not what we want, so we need to go back to base select component. In here, we'll import button type neutral constant from constants module. And we will explicitly say that all buttons next to select boxes should remain neutral. So we have to override default value for type prop whenever we pass it to base button component. In this case, we're passing button type neutral constant. And now all select box buttons have become gray again, and the only button which is primary is the button to submit activity creation form. And this is what we have expected. So in the next lesson, we're gonna work on functionality to create new activities.